You seem clear to me. Am I okay?
Okay, now you are. Yeah, you were frozen. I could hear you fine, but you were just like frozen for a second, and I was like, "Oh, I know you're not sitting that still." So like, it's...
You're listening to Enhance, the podcast dedicated to highlighting real stories told by real people.
Hello, Enhance listeners. Thank you so much for tuning back into another episode of Enhance Season 2. I am joined today by Jesse Hart. So, that's, what's so funny is whenever we were setting up your recording episode, like I chose the one topic because we were bouncing around for a little bit, and then I just put that in on the episode and was like, this is this. And my co-host Gabby was like, wow, that name is so fancy. And like, so yeah, but yes, if you'd like to say hey and introduce yourself and say how you would like to be, because I know that you also, like, on the screen it says Jesse Parker Hart. So how would you like to be called, and how would you like to be known today for the episode?
Yeah, well, Parker's my middle name. I just like I like to include it, but it's fine for it not to be included. But thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Thank you for being part of it, and just very excited to talk today. And before we introduce our topic, I do have an icebreaker for us. We always start off with an icebreaker, so if you're cool with that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I went back and forth between two different ones, and one of them was kind of deep and one of them was kind of like funny and lighthearted. So I'll let you choose. Which one do you want to do? The funny, lighthearted one or the deep one?
Ooh. Let's go for the funny one.
Yeah, okay, cool. That's what I was thinking too, just because I was like, different, our topics can get kind of deep sometimes, intense. So I was like, it might be better to start off with funny. So so I met you through LG PIC, which, for anybody that doesn't know, which I've talked about it on the show a good bit, is the Lionsgate Coalition for like inclusiveness and diversity in film and things like that. And it's like a mentorship program. And so I met you through that, and you were also a participant. And so that means that you also work in film, and you've told me about some of the cool projects you've worked on. But I want to know, like, what is the most like either unhinged project or experience you've had like working on a movie or TV show?
I'll have to say, well, the project I worked on for LG PIC was Joyride, and that just came out in theaters. And for anyone that's seen that, you can see that it's pretty crazy. And just hilarious and unhinged. And I was the cast assistant for that. So I was with the lead 4 cast members the whole time. So I really got to see up close everything that was happening. And they're pretty hilarious. They're all comedians. So it was always entertaining being around them for sure.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I think for that, I really want to see that, by the way. Like one of the movies that I worked on for LG PIC also just came out, but I've been seeing the previews for Joyride, and I was like, why didn't I get to work on that? And it's probably because I'm in Alabama, but still I was like, that looked so amazing. And one of the main actors, and it was in Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like my favorite movie. So a little jelly, but that's really cool that you got to work on that.
What was the one that you were?
It was called About My Father, and I would say I was gonna use one of my experiences from that as like my most unhinged, but then I got to thinking about it, and I was like, you know what, I do have a little bit more of like an unhinged like situation, and I think I've talked about this before, but I'll just give more detail. Like, and I know I talked about it during one of our LG PIC meetings, but I had to drive a cast member through Mardi Gras traffic in downtown Mobile. And by no means is that like as stressful as New Orleans Mardi Gras traffic, but it's still stressful, especially because we were trying to get the cast member to a fitting, and like the office was usually only like a 15-minute drive from where I had to go pick him up from. But because of Mardi Gras traffic, it added like an hour, and it was just insane. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Was it bonding time in the shuttle?
Do it now.
Was it bonding time for you guys?
Oh, well, so luckily I didn't have to drive like an actual cast van. I got to drive his rental car, which was just like a little Kia Soul. So that's just like, I don't know why. I don't know if they do that in LA or not, or like anywhere else that you've worked, but in Mobile, like Alabama specifically, they will like get you to drive the rental car that cast member will be using to pick them up, so that they can see the rental car, but then you're driving them back in the rental car. And then whenever you get back to like the office area or wherever it is that they're like doing the fitting, then you hand the keys off to them and you're like, here you go. And it's okay, but like, yeah, so I was just in a little Kia Soul. So thankfully, that was a little bit easier to drive through traffic.
Wow, no, that's wild. The cast members for Joyride, they definitely did not get rental cars. They
Really?
were treated a little bit like children, honestly. I have to say, like, not even because of them or anything, just that was kind of the vibe of that's how actors are treated, of like they have to be driven everywhere in the shuttle. We have to always know where they are, and it was very like locked down. So I
Oh,
think,
wow.
yeah, it was interesting.
That is interesting. I know that I've noticed a little bit of a difference between like how different people treat different cast members depending on like where it's at, or like where it's filming and everything. I worked with a group from that mainly worked in like Utah earlier this year, and none of the cast members got rental cars, but they also didn't get like they were expected to on the weekends to like find their own transportation to like go do their laundry and things like that off site from like the hotel. And that was really weird to me because I was like, I've never like, you're not giving them a rental car, you're not giving them a normal shuttle like way to go, and they don't have laundry service and they're expected to go do it themselves. Like that doesn't, like, what are you expecting them to do then? Just like walk, hover, Uber, like these are cast members that are like recognized by people. So it was and like not making them check in either. That was really weird to me because I was like, like you said, you're supposed to like know where they are at all times, or at least like the AD team is supposed to. So it was just very weird, but yeah.
Wow. I kind of assumed that it was one way for all sets in that regard, but I guess it's probably not.
Yeah, I know. That was that I will say was a very strange interaction for me too. Like that was like or strange situation to like experience too. So, but yeah. Well, I guess now I'll introduce our topic for today. So today we're going to be talking about like traveling, moving, like the stresses and traumas that can come with that. Because I know I've done a good bit of traveling just over the past like couple of years, but you've done like traveling and moving. So I really want to hear about your perspective of that because I know I got some things that I can talk about, but I feel like that I could not handle doing all the moving that you've done. So
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought that I was pretty adaptable to moving. This past move has been harder for me to adapt and adjust to. Um, Not that it's even anywhere super far away, but basically, I'm from Denver originally. I lived there until I was 18, and then I went to college in Canada because my mom's Canadian. It was actually cheaper
okay.
to go to college in Canada than to stay in Colorado.
Uh,
So I went there and then I stayed there for a year and then I did film school there for a year and then stayed there for a little bit longer. So I was there for almost 7 years and then I just moved to LA like a year and a half ago, just over a year ago. So I also lived in Mexico for my last semester of college for an exchange program in Guadalajara. So that obviously was a big move and adjustment and culture shock, but it was like a little bit easier in a way because I was on an exchange program, so a lot of things were taken care of for me. I didn't have as many responsibilities to figure out. So I think moving to LA has been like a huge adjustment.
yeah, definitely. And you said that you also have your spouse moved with you too.
Yeah, so I met her in Colorado a couple of summers ago, and then we were having a long distance relationship, and then she didn't want to live in Vancouver. It's too cold for her. She's from Los Cabos. She's from Mexico, so Vancouver's not that cold, honestly, but it's very rainy. It's like Seattle
Uh,
weather, so that wasn't gonna work. And I wanted to kind of move somewhere new anyway. So LA is basically right in between Cabo and Vancouver. So we
oh,
moved here together.
interesting. Okay, cool. So whenever you were in Mexico, did you get to also be there with her, or was it like?
No,
Uh,
I actually was there before I met her.
oh wow.
So
Okay. Wow.
yeah.
That's so cool. Okay. So what would like out of all the places that you have been long term or stayed long term, where was your favorite to be?
I have to say Guadalajara,
Mm,
definitely. It was just really an amazing experience. But it was also so much so fast and it's a huge city. I think it has like 5 million people. So I think I don't know if that's bigger than LA, or it might be around the size of LA. But it was just a lot to adjust to. So it was very fun for 5 months, but I don't know if I like long term it felt sustainable for me to live there. We have talked about moving back to Mexico, but maybe a different city.
Gotcha. Wow. Yeah, I know that I grew up, and we were just talking about this before we started recording. I live in a very small town in Alabama on a farm with some chickens. You know, like I have never really had to experience being in bigger cities. And now, whenever I was younger, like when I was very young, like barely even have memories of this travel. Like I used to travel a lot with my family, and we went to like South Dakota, New Mexico. We went like on a cruise once. So we used to do like a lot of like US traveling, you know, like around the country. But in adulthood, I would say like the busiest city that I've even had to like figure out how to travel to and like navigate around is North Carolina, like Charlotte, North Carolina. And that's like, it's a bigger city, but that's not like, you know, like that's not LA or New York, you know?
What is the population of
That's a good
Charlotte?
question. I'm gonna Google that real quick.
Yeah, I'm curious because I really couldn't guess.
Cue Jeopardy music. Charlotte, North Carolina population. It looks like it says 879,709 as of 2021.
Okay, yeah, that makes
So,
sense. Denver's around 1 million, so it's a
yeah.
little bit smaller.
I just realized, my laptop's not plugged in. Excuse me while I plug that in.
No worries.
I still have plenty of battery life, but you know.
But it goes quick.
Yes, it does. Especially because I have like an older Mac. I say older Mac. It's like a 2019, but you know that their batteries are not great after a few years. But yeah, so Charlotte, North Carolina, not the like not a huge city. Bigger than anywhere that I've been because I grew up in a small town called Clanton, and it's about 45 minutes to an hour below Birmingham, depending on what part you go to. And Birmingham is like a city, and it's a good sized city for Alabama. But you know what? I'm going to Google what the population is of Birmingham and see. So, population of. Yeah, so Birmingham is 1,970,000 as of 2021.
1,000?
100 or 100,000.
Oh, I was like, okay.
Yeah, so it's almost
100.
200,000.
Okay, I thought it would have been bigger.
Yeah.
What about
what about where?
What about Mobile?
Mobile? Let's see.
That's where you live right now, right?
That's where I used to live. So I lived there for a very long time. Oh, Mobile is not too much smaller than Birmingham. It's 184,000. So
okay,
yeah. As
that's
of
where
2021. That's where what?
That's where my grandpa's from, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
So you have like family all over the place. I bet.
Well,
do you have like?
He lives in Denver. I've never been to Mobile, but
Gotcha.
I haven't been to the South, but I've wanted, besides like Florida, but
Yeah.
I would.
Oh.
But I would love to go. I've heard it's beautiful.
Oh yeah, no, it's absolutely gorgeous. On an episode today, when we're recording, an episode will go up that I did with a lovely person named Vanessa that I met through TikTok. And she talked about how when she was traveling one time going to Florida, I think from Texas, that she drove through Mobile, and she was like, she said the trees there are just gorgeous. And I was like, oh, absolutely. And I even had to like go pull up pictures of like my college campus to show her because they were, I mean, just beautiful oak trees. So yeah.
Hopefully I get to go sometime.
Definitely, you definitely should. Mobile is a beautiful place which Birmingham, I really, really enjoy being in that area too, because it's like the only place that voted in the midterm elections, like voted Democrat, like in the whole state. And like,
wow.
Yeah, like won like Democrat in the midterm elections, which I thought was really, really cool. Just the fact that Alabama had a place that did that. So, but yeah. So yeah, but I mean, Mobile, Birmingham, they're amazing places that I've really enjoyed being in, but they are no LA and no New York compared to size. Like, yeah.
Well, I think I'd be overwhelmed living in New York. Definitely.
Yeah. I almost moved to New York, which now I'm glad I didn't. I do want to like go visit there and work there, but I'm really, really glad I did not move there, but almost did in 2021. So if it wouldn't have been for like the huge Omicron spike that happened, I would have
Oh,
been there. Yeah.
oh wow. So how do you think your life would be now if you were there?
I'd probably be a nervous wreck and have the soul drained out of me.
It's a
Yeah.
lot nicer being on a farm, being with some chickens and
Yes. Yeah. Everywhere that I need to get is like a 5 minute to 10 minute drive from my house. So very grateful. And even if I have to like drive to Birmingham or something, like an hour drive, like because when you're driving like an hour in this area, you're actually driving like an hour's worth of space, like
what's the town called that you live right now?
it's called Clanton. So you have to
Oh,
say it with like yeah, people always think
Cl-
I'm saying Clinton, but it's Clanton. You have to say it with like a, like hard A. So
okay.
yeah. But yeah, so whenever now I've never, like I said, I've never really traveled outside of the country. So what has that been like? Like what are some of the hoops or things that you have to jump through that most people wouldn't think about if they've never had to do that?
Well, I think traveling and moving somewhere, you know, there's a lot of different things you have to think about. For me, I was pretty lucky going to Canada because I have my dual citizenship. So, I mean, I still had to get my passport, my Canadian passport and everything, not to travel there, but just it to live there and all of that made it a lot easier to have my Canadian passport. Um, and then also going to travel to Mexico, or I've also been to some other countries or in Europe, and I went to Peru. That honestly, having the American passport is a privilege. It makes it easier to travel different places. So I didn't really have to worry about too much. It was pretty easy. But for my wife, for example, moving to the States from Mexico has been pretty hard. Um, she's in the process of getting her green card, and that is like a whole fiasco. I mean, it's pretty straightforward in her case because we got married, so it's and she came here on a tourist visa, so it's a pretty simple case. But I know for other people it can take years and it's like so complicated. And we decided to do the all of the process without getting a lawyer because I was like, that's another $3,000, like at least, like let's just try to do it ourselves and like just figure it out. And so there's this thing called Green Card Hero. It's a software online, and we got that, and it's like $300, and it helps you fill out everything, and you can do like quick consultations with a lawyer if you need extra help. But that was pretty complicated, and it's just kind of scary too,
Yeah.
for her and for us to always think like, okay, well, what if they don't accept it, or what if something happens? And it's just like a very precarious situation.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't even see, like my brain doesn't even think about things like that. And that's just insane to me. Wow.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, we hadn't been together for that long when we decided to move together, like 8 months, but that's pretty long for long distance. And so we were like, we want to live in the same place. But no matter where we went, we'd have to like deal with immigration because
Hmm.
we're in the same country. So, I mean, luckily we felt like we were in a place where getting married was an option for us and we wanted to. But if we hadn't, I there was not really a solution, and there wasn't a way we could like be together because you can only be on your tourist visa for 6 months. It's really hard to get a work visa, and she had her master's degree, so we originally thought that it would be easier, but it's pretty hard to get a work visa.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I mean, I can't imagine. That's the thing. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, well, I wouldn't even know. Like, I didn't even know that getting like a lawyer to get your green card, like, was it like, I didn't even think that would be a thing that you would even have to consider. But that's really cool
Yeah,
that there's like a software that like helps with that.
yeah, I really do want to like promote that because I'm not
Yeah.
being paid for them, but
Yeah.
no,
No.
but it was amazing because I think a lot of people think they need to get a lawyer, and that's just so expensive. And I think it's also kind of exploitative that, lawyers are making so much money off of people just trying to live in a
Yeah.
certain country. And it's like they're just helping them do paperwork. So I'm so glad that they have other solutions now.
Yeah. I know that I'm in a current situation where and I won't give too much details because it is like in a very weird situation, like space right now, but I am having to talk to like a group of attorneys about certain things, and there are certain things that they're like doing for me, and the way that they have it set up is like very different than usual. So typically like how they do is like you don't pay them unless like until everything is done, and unless you win like money, right? And then you
Oh,
split it. But the way they split it, I was still like, wow, that's a lot of money going to you guys. But I was like, well, like at the end of the day, they're doing the job and I'm not having to pay them unless they win money. So I'm not, but still I was like, wow, that's a really weird setup. And so I can imagine like also just the fact like for me it's not even like I'm already here living and everything, so it's not even anything like that. I can't imagine having to go through things like that in order to just live somewhere and like exist.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I mean, again, we have it pretty good compared to other people though, because, you know, since she did enter legally and she had her visa or tourist visa and everything was straightforward, it's like we can be pretty confident that they're going to give it to us. But like, for example, we have a trip coming up in August that my grandma got for my family to go on a cruise to Alaska. And so Alaska is not even outside of the country, so it should be fine.
Mhm.
But it ends in Vancouver. And while she's waiting for her green card, she can't leave the country, or she can, but if she does, they won't let her back in probably because she doesn't have the paperwork yet, which is crazy. So she
That
hasn't been able
is.
to her family this whole time, and so that's been rough. And so now it's like if she doesn't get her green card in time or the travel permission, which is a separate document that comes with it, she won't be able to go on this cruise. And it's like so silly because it's in Alaska. And so we had to go and try to talk to them about it. And, you know, my grandfather passed away. It's like a memorial trip. My grandma's 80 years old. So it's like, it's not technically an emergency, but it's like, come on, you know?
It's
So
important.
yeah, it's important. And so we went, and luckily the immigration officer that we got to talk to was really nice. But even being able to set up an appointment was so hard. It's like you have to call this number and you have to like our friend who went through the similar process told us what her lawyer said, which is like you have to say info pass to be able to get through like the robot. And then you have to say need to schedule an info pass appointment, and then they ask you why, and you have to say it like exactly right. And I didn't know exactly what to say. My wife tried and she called like 7 times and never got through to a person. And then I tried and it was like luckily I said the right thing, or I don't know. I said emergency need emergency travel permission. And then they finally kind of like got us through and we got an appointment. But then when we were there, she was very nice, but she was like, I just don't understand what the emergency is. I'm like, well, it's very important to Nana.
Yeah. You're like, my grandma is literally, yeah, no, that's insane. Like, I also just like, I'm glad that she was nice, but also just the questioning of like, we're trying to do something that normal everyday people can do very easily.
Yeah.
That's the emergency here. You know, like that is what we're needing to do. Like, that is why, like, I should be able to just do this and it be easy to set an appointment to set this up. I shouldn't have to explain to you why I should be able to leave the country to go to another part of the country. You know,
I know.
like,
And we're like, she'll go right back to LA after. Like, she's not going to stay in Vancouver. It's like straight back to LA. And so, you know, they weren't able to give us the emergency permission, but she was nice enough to be like, I'll try to like expedite your case, and I'll hopefully, you know, and we only have like 1 week until we find out if my grandma has to cancel her flight and the cruise for her. So
goodness.
fingers crossed.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep my fingers crossed for you guys. And then if you're cool
Yeah.
with it, I mean, like I even like you said, like just promoting this process, I want to like take this as a snippet and post it on social media, but also I'm gonna take the app, like the software that you said, like what was it that you
Oh,
called
yeah.
it?
Green Card Hero.
green card here. I want to put that in the link, like in the like show notes and everything too, whenever we post this episode, because I think that would just be really good to have there. That's easy for people to click on or copy and paste. So
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure, because I think people don't really know that there's that other option. They have to they you know, there's so much fear around it because it's a scary process. So people think they have to get a lawyer. And, you know, I'm glad we didn't, but also I totally understand people feeling like they have to, but you don't always have an extra $3,000 laying around,
yeah,
especially if you're
especially
moving to the country and
exactly. Like
trying to get your life started somewhere. So yeah, I mean, they offer 15-minute consultations with a lawyer for it's like $60, which is still expensive. But if you only need like one or two of those, then that's all you have to pay. You don't have to pay for a full lawyer fee. So it's
yeah,
really helpful.
exactly. And I think there's like a study that showed or something like that that said that like one of the most stressful, like traumatic things a person can go through is having to move. And like adding all of this to it, like if it's already stressful and traumatic to move, like doing all of this, like navigating to another country, having to jump through hoops, having to like work out the green card process and the visa process, like that's insane to me. Like that's literally like I'd break down. I'd like
Yeah.
lose it, you know, like
Well, for sure. I mean, my wife is having a hard time with it right now because it's like she had an easier time for some reason when we first moved to LA. Like I I was in a job that I wasn't like loving just because it was a good job. I was working as a junior editor at Paramount Plus, but I was working from home and I wasn't meeting anyone. And I just, you know, it was a very technical job on my computer all day. So it's like I just moved to a new city. I'm not meeting anyone. I'm just on my computer. So I was kind of miserable at first, being like, maybe we should just go to Mexico. I'm not liking it. And then, but she was doing okay. And then it kind of flopped where I got a different job and I was liking it a lot more. And then she just started getting really homesick because, you know, it's been a year and she can't go home. Mexico's very different. I mean, there's LA, there's a lot of Mexican people here, so that's nice, but it's not the same as being in Mexico. So
yeah,
she's feeling pretty homesick right now.
makes sense. That's wow. Yeah, I can. Maybe we should have also had her on the show too. Like,
I know. I after when we talked about moving, I was like, should you get on? But that's another thing too, is like the language barrier. I mean, her English is great, but she's tired of speaking English. And I think that's part of her feeling homesick is like it's just she's tired of speaking English all the time. And, you know, I speak Spanish, but not perfectly. So we even have like little arguments here and there of like why don't you understand me, like it's frustrating when you're trying to have like a conversation with your partner and I have to stop and be like what did you say, like repeat that, you know, because
yeah,
she speaks pretty fast and sometimes I'm like say it again, she doesn't
yeah,
want to say it again. But you know, so I think that's a big part of it too. And with going to a new place, that was hard for me when I went to Guadalajara. My Spanish was not very good when I first went there. I had been taking it in school, but it's not the same, you know?
yeah,
And I had almost all of my classes, 3 out of the 4 that were in Spanish, and just like normal college classes, but in Spanish. And I was not there in understanding. Like one of the classes was a political science class, and the professor didn't put slides up or anything. He would just talk to the class. We had to write down what he was saying. And I understood like 50% of what he was saying.
I cannot. Oh my gosh, that's insane.
So
Wow.
that really helped me learn Spanish, but it was very
Yeah.
stressful and hard at the time. I'm really surprised I think I barely passed that class, honestly.
Wow. This is not, it's kind of a similar thing with like the language barrier thing, but it's not the same situation, obviously, with I'm hard of hearing and I am like whenever I was a teenager, I got this infection that like because I have a lot of health issues that I'm doing a lot better with now. But whenever I was a teenager and first diagnosed, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which is a autoimmune disease that like your immune system attacks your joints. And so the medication they put me on was like really, really aggressive. And so it caused me, well, I say it caused me, it caused my immune system to be like, lowered and weakened. And because of that, a simple like ear infection, because I used to get ear infections all the time, turned into this like massive, huge infection that like affected several parts of my body.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I'm still hard of hearing. I have a lot better hearing than what I did whenever I was a teenager right after this happened, but I'm still hard of hearing. And so throughout college, I just so luckily, like my freshman year, met 2 people who one person Like I know sign language, but I know it from being like self-taught, and then I volunteered throughout like my like first part of college. I volunteered at a regional school for the deaf and blind, like in Mobile,
Oh wow.
and it like that helped me like kind of perfect my conversational side of sign. And then I met someone who she or they did a they like had went through a whole program in high school like learning proper sign language. And then I met another friend who had always been very interested in it, and so the three of us would hang out all the time. And when we were in loud places and crowded places, we would just go from talking to signing because I couldn't really hear what was happening. And we would like, and I can read lips really really well, but if I'm in a group, that's been the hardest thing. And I realized it like earlier this year. I went through a really really bad depression, and I realized that when I'm in groups with my friends, I'm very extroverted whenever it comes to like being out in public with my friends and doing fun things and things like that. But I have a tendency to like isolate and like go inward whenever I'm in an area where I'm not comfortable like asking people to repeat themselves, or like in an area where I can read lips very easily. So like whenever I'm out at a bar and people are all talking and they're not looking at me when they're talking because we're in a group, I'll just kind of sit back and like get really quiet and pretend to be listening. And I realize I like do that automatically. And
Mm.
so, because I don't have any friends now that really know sign language, well, I reconnected with that friend from high school or from college, and we were all out, and like I ran into her because she was day playing as a PA on a movie I was on, and it was like so coincidental that I ran into her because I didn't even know she lived in the area because she was like from somewhere else and then came there for college. And so we all went out in a group, and she's getting to meet like my current friends, and then she made mutual friends on that movie that I had already been friends with and everything. And so we're sitting there, and she sees like me just kind of like sit back and not know what's going on, and she starts signing to me like just automatically. And there was like this weird euphoric like fuzzy feeling that I got from having somebody there that could like speak the same, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's so weird to say speak the same language as me because it's not the
Oh,
same situation that your wife is going through at all. But
it's
like,
similar for
yeah,
sure.
and it definitely it just like I like felt seen, you know, and I like was like, "Oh my gosh," and I started signing with her, and then there was like this weird moment where my like it's weird to say like modern friends, but like my current like adulthood friends that I've met like in adulthood that haven't seen that side of me, like they like were confused because they had never seen me like code switch like that, you know, and just start signing with somebody. But then it also helped them kind of see like, wow, like Sam's really been isolated for years. When we go out in public and nobody like he can't hear what's happening, we've just never noticed, you know, like
Oh,
yeah.
that's so interesting and makes me feel like we should all learn sign language, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like such a helpful tool. I mean, sometimes I'll be out and, it's really loud and it is hard to hear. And it's just like you feel like you're shouting the whole time. And
Hmm.
you like end being like, you feeling like your voice is tired. And it's just like sometimes it's so loud and like my hearing's fine. And it's hard to hear. So I can't imagine how hard it must be to hear in like loud bars.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's like a certain like level that I just can't hear. Like once a volume gets to a certain level or like a pitch gets to a certain level, like when people start raising their voice, everything just jumbles together. So I can't
Mm.
like I can't like hear people's enunciations at all. I'll just see. So that's why I like rely on reading their lips. But like I said, if they're all turned looking at each other, talking to each other, I'm like just lost. And yeah, so
Wow.
I definitely like I can like if that is the only time that I deal with that feeling, I can't imagine what being in a place where that's the only feeling you have is being around people who like you feel like you can't communicate with properly, and that you're having to like go the extra mile to be like, I'm sorry, what'd you say? Or like leaning around to like look at people's mouth, you know what I'm saying? So like if I was like completely deaf, like I feel like it would be the same situation or similar situation as like what your wife may be facing, where it's like she's in an area in a place where she is having to make the extra step to communicate with other people, and you're doing that too for her, which I'm sure is awesome and helpful. But then I can see why that would add some stress sometimes, where there's like that miscommunication or that like tired of having to like code switch, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I think something I that was helpful for me when I was in Guadalajara was made friends with like the other exchange students also. And so sometimes it was easier. A lot of them were from France. And so their Spanish and English were maybe at a similar level. And so it was like, well, let's just speak in Spanish then, because then we're practicing and we're here, you know, might as well. But we were both like kind of bad and like rusty. And so it was easier to speak with people like that because we could be slow. It was a lot easier to understand them because they were speaking so slowly. And there was like less pressure. Like if we don't understand each other, it's fine. You know, we can like ask. But definitely when you're in a group setting, I think that's the hardest.
Definitely, I can see. Yeah, and I can like you saying like less pressure. I can also see that too. Like that, just like yeah, like I didn't think about that like pressure of like trying to feel like you have to keep up and things like that too.
Yeah, I think that's a really hard thing when you're in a group of like native speakers and it's like there's this like level of, you know, just what they're talking about, the rhythm, and then feeling like you have to slow it down when you have to come in and be like not understanding, or it's just intimidating. And that's something that my wife says also, is that she feels like she can't have like as deep of conversations with people here. And that's I totally get that, because it's really hard to have really deep conversations and when you're not feeling totally comfortable in the language.
Yeah, definitely. Well, to go back to the travel aspect too of things, so outside of this sort of like cultural like pressure that that you've been through whenever you went to a Spanish speaking country, and now that she's dealing with like being here and everything, what is something that like that just you would have never expected to happen at some point in your travels or like moving process that happened to you that you're just like that you had to figure out how to like fix on the fly or like face on the fly?
That's a good question. Um, so when I went to Peru, I went with like a group. There was like a seminar through my college, UBC, the University of British Columbia, and it was a 3-week seminar. And we stayed like near an indigenous community in like a small town, in Peru named Tarapoto was the city, but and then we were like in an even smaller town, nearby, and we were mostly doing like these kind of seminar discussion classes with the professors, but on the weekends we got to do other activities. And so as a group of students, there were I think maybe like 20 of us, we went to see this waterfall. And so we had like a local guide take us there, but then the local guides were like 2 teenagers. And so I think they didn't really like think about this, but it had rained. I wouldn't have thought about this either, but it had rained either that morning or the day before. And so we had to cross this river to get to the waterfall, like in the jungle. And when we crossed, we had to like go deep in and then like cross back over to go to the other side. And the water had raised so much because it had rained. And so it was like what at first was like fine for everyone's like athletic ability to walk through a river became like, this is very dangerous.
Yeah.
And so, like, some of them could have made it through. I probably could have if I like swam, but it's like you can't like risk someone just slipping down the river.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, we can't cross. And there was no like cell phone service or anything. So then we were just like stuck in the forest on the other side of the river. And the guides were like, oh my God, like, what do we do? So the one of them I think did have cell phone service because his phone was there and it was, so he called his mom. And so it was a very small town. So then she went to like the mayor, who brought like a rescue team to us. And so it was like a rescue team. And then literally like the local news station came over.
Oh my
And
gosh.
probably it just seemed like so ridiculous. Like we were just like these people from, I mean, UBC is a pretty international school, so it wasn't like a bunch of Canadians. It was like a mix of people, but still like these people not from Peru and were there just like clueless, like stuck on the other side of the river. And the rescue team like came across for us, and the police came too, but they didn't know what to do. They were not helpful. And so the rescue team came, and they were like, the only way to go is to go like up the mountain and like around. And so it was like a very long journey. It took like hours, and we were just like, it was really cool. It was actually like my favorite kind of part of the trip because it was just like an adventure. But it was like hard, like climbing. We were getting all like cut up in the bushes, and it was just wild. And then when we finally made it out, we were like all dirty and covered in mud, and the people in the town were like looking at us like, oh my God.
I
And
can
our
see
like,
I
yeah,
could see like why that would be fun if you planned on going to do that. Like if you planned on having that kind of adventure. But I could also see why like that would not be fun if you weren't planning on that.
for sure. It was definitely like stressful in certain moments, but looking back, it was like it was a fun adventure. In the moment, maybe
Yeah.
it didn't feel so bad though.
That's really cool. I wish, because I love to go like hiking and things like that. Like my friends like kind of pick on me and they call me like they always tell me that I'm like the stereotypical like granola crunching hiker gay. Like that's my like aesthetic. and so like, and so but I do like I love to just go like trekking through the forest. Like there's nothing like a good just like bulldozing through a forest. Like not like bulldozing, you know what I'm saying? Like you just like charging through a forest, and like water to
Off-roading like without the trail, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I like to go like if there's any type of body of water that's kind of like shallow-esque, like I like to just have sandals on and go trekking through it, and everything. So like I would probably have a blast doing all of that, but also like I would be terrified if they were like if there was like a like oh shit moment where like my guides didn't know what to do, I'd be like, "Well, this is where we die." I listen to a lot of true crime and paranormal podcasts. We're either going to get eaten by a Yeti or taken by a serial killer. There's no in between.
I know,
Like,
exactly. We just watched the Blair Witch Project last night. I had never seen it before, so I'm really glad it didn't turn into one of those situations.
yeah, definitely.
The rescue team definitely knew where they were going, but it was amazing because it was like deep really in the forest and up the mountain, and there was no trail. That he literally had like a machete and was cutting down a path for us. So I'm
Oh my
so
God.
glad he knew where to go.
See, then my brain would immediately like be suspicious of him just because he has the machete. Like, did you plan this? Like, oh
That
my
did pass
gosh.
through my head. Yeah.
Goodness, wow. Yeah, I would say like because whenever I went to North Carolina like to like last year, because I went back this year for a little while for a different project, but last year whenever I went, it was for a Universal project, so I was there for like months, and this time that I went, I was only there for like 2 weeks. Jesus, I just like shook my entire desk. But
Did you
but
say
I was
Orlando?
oh no, to Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh,
So
Charlotte. Okay.
yeah. Oh yeah, no. I feel like Orlando is probably bigger than Charlotte.
I
Huh?
know, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, that's probably a pretty big
Yeah, let's
city.
go back to the Google Orlando, Florida population. I've been to Orlando before, but it was just for vacation. Yeah, 309,000 is their population
Okay.
as of 2021. But I mean, whenever I was younger, but that was during my like I don't remember these years, like I can remember a little bit, but nothing much. So, but and then, like you said, with the whole like having everything planned for you through your school, everything was planned for me by my parents. So I didn't have to do any of that.
For sure.
But yeah, having to navigate like going to Charlotte, North Carolina and like finding my own place to live because I worked as a local, never work as a local in places like that unless you already have a place to stay. But just anybody listening. But I did because I was like, I want this opportunity and there's no work in Mobile right now. And I just finished up a project and I need money. So I'm gonna do it. And boy, oh boy, that literally there's like that alone altered the course of my life. I know that's like sounds very dramatic, but it did. Like
Oh yeah.
that's what ended up making me move away from Mobile. That's what like ended up me moving back to Clanton. Like all of that, like it altered everything. And I'm grateful for it. But that was like a stressful process. It just, yeah.
Just moving and having to find the place and like set everything up again and meet new people and all that.
Yeah. Well, so I also just having to navigate like by using like I used Airbnb and I used hotels.com and like things like that. And there was a lot of stuff, and I don't know how much because I could go on with this about this for hours, but literally there were so many things that looking back, I'm like, if I could stop people from making that same mistake I did, I would. But like my first big mistake was like for the Airbnb that I booked, there was a whole like weird, it was a very shady situation. But the guy that I was actually there with, because it was like a live-in host, like it was 2 separate rooms, 2 separate bathrooms, like that whole thing. So the guy that was there, ended up, he like owned up to me like probably the first week or so that I was there that he wasn't actually the owner of the property. Yeah, or no,
Oh,
sorry. Sorry, he was the owner of the property, but the guy that I was renting from was a different person. So it was like a business partner.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And so then he found out that the guy was actually charging me like way more than what he said he was going to.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So then he was like, I'm just gonna like cancel being business partners with this guy because like this is too much drama and too much stuff. And like I didn't realize he was gonna do all this. So you can just rent from me if you want. And I was like, okay, so like just cancel Airbnb. So I just like rented from this guy, an atrocious amount still, but it was less than what I was having to pay through Airbnb. But it still was like a terrible situation. Like it was not, I should have not done that. It was in a nice area. It was a nice area, nice apartment. Like, I mean, like super grateful, but like it was just, he like did not have boundaries whatsoever, like no boundaries. Like he was expecting me to come in and like want to be like his buddy and like part of his family. And like he had like tons of people over all the time and everything else. And I was like, I'm just trying to work. Like I'm trying to be, I got my 2 cats here and I'm
Yeah.
trying to work, you know? But basically at the end of it, everything kind of blew up and like he just kept on crossing boundaries over and over and over again, and his family kept like eating my food and stuff like that. And like he would try
God.
to like gaslight me and was like, well, you know, like we just share in my family, we just share. And I was like, I get that, but like I don't have money to just share, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't, you know, like
Here.
yeah. And like I'm literally living off of like I was a clerk in accounting on that at that point, so like I wasn't making like a lot of money, you know. And
Yeah.
so like there was just a lot that like my like, and there were also red flags like my truck getting towed like the first night that I was officially there, and they had to like go get it out of like the record. Like it was crazy.
Oh
And so
God.
but when everything blew up, this is the part that I'm like, I don't even know how much detail, like I like literally I don't even know how I should say this, but I'm going to and just hope for the best. Whenever I was packing up my stuff and leaving, I found drugs hidden in the room I had been staying in.
Oh
And I
my God.
looked, yeah. And so I looked back at, because when I very first got there, I took pictures of the entire room. And where I found them, I had coincidentally like taken pictures and videos of that exact spot because my cats had found where the carpet would lift up in the room. And so, and like, keep in mind, like I said, this is like a nice area, nice apartments. Like, this was not like a shady area or anything like that in Charlotte. Like, it's like in one of the residential areas outside of, like, right outside the main city. And so, but I looked back and I was like, you can see them in the pictures. And I remembered I showed him just to be like, hey, just an FYI, I'm showing you all this so that you know it wasn't like me. Like the cats just found where the carpet lifts up. I've like took videos and stuff. And I showed him the video and he reacted and was like, wait, what's that right there? And like pointed at that part. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, it just looks like insulation to me. Like that's all it looked like, was like subfloor and insulation. But then whenever I started going through and cleaning things up, I was vacuuming up that spot and the carpet lifted up again. And I saw it and I was like, oh my God. And it was like a lot. And
Oh
I
my.
literally like, yeah, I like called the police. I was like, these aren't mine. Like it was in the room. And they were just like, it's fine. They were like, you're reporting it. We'll go check it out. I have no idea what happened. I have no idea what happened after that. I just like left.
Oh my gosh. So do you think he knew?
What I have to guess is because apparently the guy that I actually like was in touch with on Airbnb, that was claiming it was his apartment and was like his business partner, whatever, apparently had been in that room before. And
Uh,
also the like just the room, the bathroom and everything was very, very not clean or good. Like it wasn't cleaned properly whenever I very first moved in there, which is like one of the issues that I had in the beginning. And so one of the red flags I should have paid more attention to, and how I was even able to get my deposit back from Airbnb because I sent pictures of how like not clean the area was.
good.
And so the owner of the apartment was like, yeah, he just like was like that, blah, 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 like all this other stuff. And like just tried putting it all off on him. So what I'm guessing is that that dude, because apparently he still came and like stayed in that room sometimes when it wasn't being rented out, or like when he was in the area, because he would go between like New York and Charlotte a lot, and which apparently there's a lot of people that do that there. I don't know, like,
Interesting.
yeah. But so he would stay in that room. So what I'm guessing is that he just like, it was that guy who stashed them there, but I have no idea. I literally just like blocked all of them and like left. Like,
That's wild. I'm sorry that you had to experience that. What advice would you give people like moving to a new place if you have to like use Airbnb or something to like not to try to avoid a situation like that?
don't. Like, don't rush things. So that was my issue, is that I was trying to rush it, and I just kept on thinking like, oh, this is a good experience, like people do this all the time, and like I shouldn't have. I should have just not, I shouldn't have rushed it, and if it wasn't something I could have worked out, I shouldn't have taken the opportunity, which sucks because I'm glad I did take it. I learned a lot of great, like a lot of valuable lessons, and there just was, I wouldn't have been hired for anything else because there was nothing going on in my area at that time. So because I remember whenever I was there in Charlotte texting with friends, and they were like, yeah, there's no work here. And I thought that I was going to be missing out on work because there were a bunch of potential projects that were going to be coming there, but this was one that would start sooner, and it was a universal project. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go take that. So even though I don't regret taking it, and I don't regret like the opportunity, I just shouldn't have rushed, you know? Like that's the main thing, is like, don't rush the process. And like there were certain decisions that I made too early on. If I hadn't made those decisions, like I was planning on, like I had bought a camper and I was gonna do like camper living, you know,
Sure.
but I only gave myself like 2 or 3 days to like get the camper set up on my, like with my vehicle at the time. And because now I drive like a little car, so I could not pull a camper, but I drove like a truck then, and it wasn't compatible with the truck, and the like blinkers wouldn't like fit, like wouldn't sync up right. The uh like emergency flashers, brake lights, none of that would sync up right. And I like literally could not get them to work. And I took them to somebody who like went and replaced certain things on my truck to like make it to where it would fit, and it still did not work. So I like gave myself no realistic time whatsoever to do anything. So that's what I would say, is like, don't, if you're gonna rush it, don't. And also on weird advice, it was in the middle of a Mercury retrograde, and I'm big into astrology, and one of the things you're not supposed to do during Mercury retrograde is travel and move. So I wouldn't have done that. Oh my goodness, a cat.
He's been trying to bite my legs under the table, so if I've been making any weird faces, that's what's going on. So he wants to say hi.
Oh my goodness. Hello. What is your
Simba.
cat's name?
It's like he's on
Simba.
the microphone. Yeah.
He's like, I am the star of the show. This is an Enhanced podcast featuring me. My cat came in here a little bit ago. Actually, so I have like 9 dogs at my house right now.
Wow.
Yeah, and 2 cats. So, but one of my dogs earlier, right when before we started recording, just like busted in my room. And when I say busted, like I have like a baby gate up, keeping all of them out. But there's one that I don't mind it if he comes in here. We just have to keep it quiet so the other dogs don't come in here. But it was him, and he just like has figured out how to just like hit the baby gate really hard and make it flip over. And so he'll just do that. Like I'll hear it flip over, and I'll turn to look, and he just comes walking in smiling, and he like won't bother me or anything. Like he's so sweet. I love him so much. But he is like, he'll just like flop down and lay down on the, like on the ground. And so, and he's like the one dog that most of the cat, like the 2 cats don't mind for the most part. And so, we technically have 3 cats here, but one of them refuses to come inside. And it's like one of my cats that I've had since they were both kittens, like a little bitty. He just like refuses to come inside at all. Like, yeah. And I'll like see him sometimes, and I'll be like, come here. And he'll like look at me, and he'll be like, it's just like walking the opposite direction. And he used to be so affectionate too. But anyways, so but I have another cat that he's like obsessed with me, and like would literally like breathe the air I'm exhaling if he could. And he came in here earlier just like screeching. And he does that to me. Like he'll just like really loud. Yeah. Anyway.
But you can't keep them out with the baby gate, can you? The cats can just jump over it.
Yeah, no. So that's why I put the baby gate up, is so that he can come in here with me, and the dogs won't bother him, because I have to. So the dog that like is the most chill dog, like he's just super sweet, and he'll like bust through the baby gate, but then he'll come lay down. His name is, or his name is Boss. I didn't name him. I'm more clever with my names, but he is my dog, and a family member had him, but then no longer like wasn't really taking care of him and then no longer wanted him. And I was like, I love him, so I'm keeping him. And so now he's mine. But he's a
Oh.
pit bull. And so he's just like this big floppy, like smiley dog. And he just like flops over and does, and he's just so happy. But then I have 2 dogs that are Australian Shepherd and German Shepherd mix. And they are just like energy, you know? And so they they annoy my cats. And so that's why I put the baby gate up, is because they haven't quite figured out how to just like bust through the baby gate. But like, so the cat can come in here, and if boss comes in, he doesn't bother the cats. So yeah.
Simba just jumped up on here, so that's what he likes to do when I'm sitting at the desk is
Amazing.
yeah.
One-
We had to get
one of-
him shaved. Oh, sorry. We had to get him shaved like a lion because he got fleas recently because we just
Aw.
found a dog that was on the highway in LA, which is like
Yeah.
the highways in LA are crazy. He was walking alongside the highway and he was gonna get hit by a car for sure. So
Yeah.
we grabbed him and we put him in the car, and he's blind. He's like an old poodle mix, and so he ended up getting fleas and giving them to Simba. So Simba's shaped
Aw.
like a lion now.
Yeah, we've been dealing with fleas for a little bit here too, because all of our animals are inside and outside animals. But I have finally come up with a system to like help them keep the fleas at least down to a minimum. And I also just got like my senior dog back. That was like the dog I grew up with. And
Oh.
he like, cause yeah, he was at my brother's house, and he was like an only outside dog at my brother's house. And my brother like took care of him fine. So this is no like shade on them or anything. But he just, when we got him, because he was like outside only, he was like infested with fleas. And so I've been like brushing him and washing him off, and he like is acting like a young whippersnapper now. You know, like he's like 13, but he's out running around trotting, like, because we have like 5 acres and we have like fields where it's like tall grass, because I've planted trees out and I don't want to like cut the grass and like kill the trees that I've planted. And so he's just out there trotting, and you'll just see his ears pop up. He's a lab mix, so he's just like out running around and everything. Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
Simba's trying to eat the plants, so I need to send it out.
I love cats, so you never have to apologize. And also, orange tabby cats are like my favorite kind of cat. So
They are very sweet, but he's a troublemaker.
yeah. Well, anyways, that that was another thing. Is like traveling with my cats was like a very difficult thing too, because I like didn't have anywhere else for them to really go. So like they would have like, and I was like, I'm not like, I don't like I feel like you would get this like. There are those people that are like, oh, there's this big life change, time to get rid of my animals, like,
yeah.
And I'm like, not like that. I was like, yeah, I'm moving states away. They're coming with me, even if I'm only going to be there for 6 months, like it's just non-negotiable, So
That's how I feel about it too. We found out that with this dog that we got, that the people that had him before, because he had a microchip, we like kind of tracked down the situation. They gave him away after having him for 10 years, just because they moved to an apartment where they didn't accept pets. And so for me, I'm like, I understand maybe sometimes your options are really limited, but
yeah,
they can't find another apartment that accepts pets.
Yeah, definitely. Like even like for me, whenever, because like working in film, especially like not being in LA where like film is just here, and like in Alabama, it's like you have to travel around sometimes. And so there was like a good like month or 2 period where I wasn't here, like in Clanton, and wasn't nearby. And that's why one of my cats decided to just be an outside cat now. Like he because I wasn't here, so he was like, well, there's nothing keeping me inside, and I like being outside more. And so like even just that little bit, I'm like, dang, I really hate that. Like I had to for work. Like I had to travel so that I could keep on making money, because there was nothing happening like where I was at. But it's still just like, and he loves my house, and my mom like loves them, so she was taking care of them and everything. But it's just like even that little bit was stressful enough for him to where he was like, all right, I'm done being inside. Like I'll come inside and get food, and that's it. Because like he'll still come inside to eat, but he won't let us like see him or anything like that. Like he won't he just like comes, sneaks in, and then I'll see him outside sometimes, and he's just like stares at me. Yeah.
Wow.
And so like that, like he used to be like so affectionate and obsessed with me. So if me just going out of town for that little bit like was enough to stress him out that much, like just I can't imagine like what rehoming an animal completely just because you couldn't take them with you like does to them, mentally.
Yeah,
So.
I know. we just left. We went camping for a day, and we brought the dog with us, but we had to leave my cat here. Obviously, we can't take him camping,
Yeah.
and like left him enough food and everything. It wasn't even
Yeah.
like 24 hours, but he was so mad that he like peed on something when we got back.
Yeah. And see, like cats, they're easy in that aspect. Like I've had to leave my cats like that before. Like before I moved from Mobile, I had like plenty of friends that my cats loved and were obsessed with. And so like I would just get those friends to go by, spend time with them and like everything else. But they're easy. Like you can just make sure you set up like extra litter boxes so that they don't like run out of fresh litter. Make sure that you give them plenty of food and water, and they're like happy, like,
Yeah.
and as long as like, but obviously they'll be mad at you for leaving them. But so, but yeah.
They'll be fine. Yeah.
But yeah, well, I think that kind of I guess we can like wrap it up here. That kind of concludes like, I guess everything that we would talk about today. Is there anything you want to add last minute? Like there's just advice or like a story or anything like that from your travels that you think would be good to share?
Yeah, we kind of went on an animal track. Trying to think. I don't know. I definitely agree with what you said about like make sure not to rush things. I think if you're traveling or if you're moving somewhere, I think I've made that mistake many times. In Vancouver, I had to move to different houses like every year because there's a big housing crisis there, and it's hard to find like good housing.
Oh wow.
And a lot of times it was rushed, and sometimes that's just the way it is, and you have to just like make it work. A lot of times I had like 7 roommates, like all in like a big house that's like falling apart, not taken care of, because that's just how it is in Vancouver. But I wish that I had like taken more time and thought out those moves, and definitely moving, and then also like traveling, like figuring out the plans better and packing. So I think it never hurts to take a couple extra days to figure everything out.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. Well, tell everybody where they can find you at. Like, where can they go follow you and connect with you?
Oh yeah. I mainly use Instagram, and it's at Jesse Parker Hart, Jesse. And I have some stuff on my YouTube channel, which you could see on my Instagram. I have a link tree, so that kind of has anything else on there.
Nice. And if you go to my Instagram and look at who I follow, you can find Jesse too, because we follow each other there. So if
Yeah,
yes, definitely cool. Well, I didn't realize you had a YouTube channel. I'll have to go check that out too. Do you just put like edits and stuff like that on there?
Yeah, just sorry.
It's okay. I was like, get off the call and pay me attention. This is my show. I'm done with this. Like,
decided it's over. Yeah, I don't have a bunch of stuff on there that's like recent, but more like some older like videos I had made, some like music videos, and I just finished a music video, which it's not on there yet, but hopefully soon. I won't put it on my YouTube channel because the artist is gonna post it, but that's something that I'm excited to share when it's ready.
Awesome. Cool. That's great. Well, awesome. Well, until next time, that is it for this episode of Enhance. And thank you guys so much for tuning back in. Thank you so much for listening to Enhance Podcast. I am Sam, one of your hosts.
And I'm your other host, Gabby Sabat.
If you want to find me on social media, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at SamDifYouDo.
You can find me on TikTok at GabbyS80 and on Instagram at GSABAT97.
And if you want to follow the podcast, you can find us on Instagram and on Facebook at enhance.productions.publishing.
And check us out on our website at enhance.productions. Enhance your peace,
your joy,
and your existence.